think actually, I think Amos actually touched on something interesting that I want to get y'all's thoughts on, which is the people who speak the truth in this play. It seems like they're few and far between characters who kind of say what they honestly think has to happen. So just out of curiosity, like, is there one or two of the characters that you think are like the most truthful of the ones?
No.
It's weird because they all, in a way, just expose themselves pretty outrightly. Like everybody is very obviously like, "Hey, I'm here to talk to you to hopefully manipulate you, and if not, why don't we work together?" Kind of thing. Like they suck at it.
Mm-hmm.
I I feel like Bradley's the only one that like uses that to his advantage, where he just like makes well, but then nobody likes him. Like so it almost backfires. Like so he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go full honesty and that's my charm. But nobody wants to smell the guy.
No one wants to know about his butt sore.
Tyler, Rob, anything from you guys?
Yeah, I feel like we don't really like. Okay, get my words together. Yeah, I feel like Bradley is one of the people to tell the truth in like a sideways way. Like he's telling you truly what he feels, but he's just leaving out those details. I feel like most of everyone else is not telling the truth and or using their manipulation in a way of their for a reason of their insecurities. Like you have I gotta remember which person is which. You have Colette. Colette has this fear of not being the ingenue anymore. That's her insecurity. And so she is using that fear to boost up her need to be seen, to be noticed, to be the ingenue, to have that moment. Instead of using that to be her, instead of using the need to be the star as a development and helping of the story. And you also have Brenda, who straight up is like, I'm just gonna be with the writer and I'll get my way into writing more scenes. But again, there's all this insecurity within there, not a beneficiary, but not beneficial to the story at hand, beneficial to them due to their insecurities. And with Victor, I just think he's sad all the time. But I think he gets to the point where he's so tired of being manipulated by others that he has to succumb to what everyone else is doing. Bradley, on the other hand, he has a slight insecurity, but I feel like truly his insecurity is that he wants to just make money off of this movie and cutting that in any way, shape, or form. He's thinking of this, in my mind at least, in a more physical way than an emotional way. That's just kind of what I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Josue touched on something pretty important, which is that Bradley's probably the most truthful, but he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Liked. Most of the time, when you tell the truth, you're not liked.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of the few without a ton of ulterior motive behind what he wants to do. Because yeah, you're right. Like Tyler, not only does Brenda sleep with Victor, but she also slept with George Lee Beach, and she thinks about sleeping with Bradley. Like there's a whole lot to unpack there.
Right.
Rob or Anais, anything that y'all would like to jump in? Rob shakes his head softly.
I can go.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's it's so weird. I really like Colette. I think that, I don't like her as she's kind of like a gross person, but I like her as a character.
Yeah.
What's so bad about being a character actress? But
some of us would kill for that.
But I think that she is probably, out of all of them, aside from maybe Bradley, like the most transparent. She knows exactly what she wants. She knows exactly what she doesn't want, and she's not willing to make nice necessarily to get it. I mean, she'll definitely trade like clumsily, like transparently offered sexual favors for sure, but like she'll be honest, like yeah, oh totally, yeah, no, I want something out of this. I'm not just trying to be nice to you. Like, I don't know. I get this sense. I mean, obviously she's a little bit more of an established actress. It reminds me a little bit of this is so weird, but it reminds me a little bit of the movie Showgirls, like with Gina Gershon's character and what's her name? What the lead in that movie?
Nomi Malone. That's the
right. I love Puppy Chow. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, it just reminds me of like the dynamic between like those two characters, where it's just like you have the veteran who's and even in terms of like the actual actresses of that movie, where you have like this veteran actress who knows exactly what the score is, she knows exactly what kind of stupid movie this is going to be, and then you have your actual like your ingenue, like you have like your wide-eyed kind of like, I'm going to be famous, and like how did that work out for that lead actress? I wonder, like, how did that work out? So I don't know. It's just I don't have a point. It's just interesting to me. It's an interesting. I made the connection in my mind just now, and I was like, I need to say that out loud.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's 100%. You know, all of these people are. I think it's something John Patrick Shanley does well. Is that all of the people come from different walks of life. Colette is someone who is aged out of being the young, eager person to. She wants to be the ingenue, but we all know she's kind of on her way to being that aunt in the Lifetime movies that she's afraid of becoming, you know. And yeah, like I think it's a very interesting way how John Patrick Shanley like balances all of these people and puts them in a world where none of them are like evil or mean or anything. They all just kind of make decisions for their own selfish goals, and unfortunately it costs other people, you know, to do that.
Kind of
You
me.
just sound like Cubs.
Just one note about character actresses. I think it's sad when ingenues don't realize that the characters and the funny soubrette best friends get more applause. They like us more. That's it. I'm sticking to it.
That's your truth. That's your truth.
They were definitely mean.
So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but one of the last questions I want to ask you is like, what roles do you think writers have in the final say on their works? And do you agree with John Patrick Shanley that writers kind of get removed from the process?
Yes, I definitely would agree with that. I've worked on a couple new works before, at least in plays, not really in film. But once a script is written, it completely changes from the beginning to the end, in the sense that different voices have an input, a director has an input, everybody has an input, that your whole goal is to just get a finished product that makes sense and is understandable to the audience. And everybody has a different vision and wants to give their input, which then I think invites a lot of changes. Whether those changes are good, you test it, you go back, or you continue and you move forward and you develop upon that. I think writers obviously have a say because it's their story. But when you're given this kind of project, a big budget, a chance to get your work more notably seen, there are more stakes. And as I said when I was in college, like sometimes when it comes to a choice, you have to kill your babies. You have to kill the things that you're very close with just to really move things along. So yeah, I think things change a lot.
I mean, I think they have to. There's a cliche in filmmaking that a movie gets written 3 times once when it's written, once while it's shooting, and once in the editing room. And but it's incredibly true. And part of it is that, you know, as a writer, you need to have like so much arrogance. Otherwise, you'd never write anything at all, or show it to anyone, or think it deserved to be spoken by other people. But then you also have to have this humility where, you know, you hear an actor say the dialogue out loud, and that thing that looked really good on paper, you hear it and go, oh, a human being cannot say that without gasping for air. That would work in a novel, and it's not working in this play or movie. And
Yeah.
And there are always going to be things like that. Or also, like, you know, if you write a novel, you're not going to get screwed over by a house being too expensive to be a location, or by, you know, the car getting wrecked that you needed in the next scene, and you can't, and so now you need to rewrite it. And, you know, some of the art of screenwriting or writing a play is that there is going to be hopefully good alchemy between your piece of the work and lots of other people's piece of the work, and you're not going to rule that with an iron fist, and no one really is. And hopefully what comes out in the end is something that reflects your soul and your work and your brilliance. And then also hopefully some of what comes out is stuff that has very little to do with you, but you prompted that brilliance and that vitality, and someone else is making you look even better than you are. And you know, that's the hope. But it's never going to, there's never going to be, especially in any performing art, the writer's work is just never going to come through entirely, because that's not, how could it? It's not the point.
Mhm.
Even if we'd like it to be sometimes.
Yeah. Amanda, I saw your hand pop up.
Yeah, I have like 3 points. One was Amos just inspires, you know. One, the last play that we all discussed was Seminar, and it's funny that you say writers have to have a certain arrogance to show their work, because that entire play is about a writer who doesn't want to share or show his work until the end, to this, and ends up being seen by a really arrogant writer teacher who's instructing their workshop. And then I also think it's interesting how writers, in a way, are a different character trope. In a certain sense, like the show Hollywood explores how scripts get changed and or how they get developed, budgets and everything similar to this. And then also, I've been watching with Manny Little Voices on Apple TV that Sarah Bareilles helped write all the music for. And it's about an aspiring singer-songwriter. And she ends up collaborating with somebody. And she has like a strict way she wants her songs to sound. And the dude that she joins up with is like, oh, we should do it at like a better tempo, like a deck. He's like, the way you're singing it's very sentimental. Like we should like pick it up. And then she's like, no, I just want it this way. And she gets like very defensive over her baby, like over her art, over her song. So it's interesting to see how this show, Seminar, Hollywood, and Little Voices, and many others, I'm sure, all are like, the writers are writing about what they know, and it's about their experiences and their frustrations and wanting to like, that's their thing. Don't change it. It's mine.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting how over a vast span of time, and more recently, it's so topical in a way still.
Yeah, definitely. I think speaking from my experiences, when I think there's pluses and minuses to having the writer in the room for it. Like you definitely, as a director, if I've done something, if they're in the room, I'm definitely a little bit more nervous about messing with their stuff, because they're there to say, oh, I think it should be differently. Whereas if you're working with someone whose work is, either they're not going to see it or they're dead, it's like, oh yeah, no, I can do whatever I want with this line now, because Shakespeare is not going to come from the grave and fight me over this line or anything like that. So I think they have a different world to it. But yeah, I think unfortunately part of the process, I think, of being a writer is ceding some of your power to the other people around you, whether that's as a playwright or a screenwriter or even like someone writing a novel or anything. You still have an editor, you still have someone who's looking over your shoulder for it. And you know, if sometimes you have to accept that maybe it won't be what you imagine it to be.
And it's interesting in film that, or TV, that there's rewrites up until the day of shooting, like a few hours before. They could totally change what's about to happen. Versus, I think, like a lot of plays and stage productions are a little more cemented before they really get up in front of people in that way.
Well, you still have previews, and you still have, I don't know, for New York, for Broadway shows, you have previews, and you have your out of town run, and you have all of the adaptations that can change. But yeah, you definitely have a little bit more. Once you're where you're supposed to be, generally it's pretty set, and then they go the step further and put all of that stuff into the printing of the next scripts, because then it's like, oh, this is what we did in the original production. This is your blocking from now on, you know.
But it is interesting that even with that, once it's printed, there's copyright. You have to be dead letter perfect. You can't really paraphrase the lines. Whereas up until you're shooting and you're filming, it's not like an improv, but it like could, if one word's off, no one's gonna cut you because that's money that they just cut, you know, and they waste all
Sometimes
the
an improv
time.
makes it in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a different beast in a way. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, the
Go ahead, Amos. Sorry.
oh, I was just going to say, I remember the writer of the movie Going the Distance, Jeff LaTulip, one time said, he said, yeah, people are constantly giving me credit for lines of dialogue they love, and I always have to tell them, oh no, Charlie Day made that up on set. Like, well, take the credit, man.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do some final thoughts on everything, as it seems like we might be wrapping up here. So just some final thoughts on Four Dogs and a Bone before we go. Andre?
Just us talking about like the truth of like what happens in Hollywood. I started thinking of, look at where we are with reality shows. It's like this is we have shows in a whole bunch of industries, but it's always messy. Like no matter if it's a kid's dance school, it's messy. If it's some housewives, it's messy. You know what I mean? It's like I felt like this play was just telling the audience like, yeah, this is what goes on behind the scenes. Like, you know, it's not fun. We're not all nice to each other. I think it was very mean. That conversation between the two women was just like, my God, you know, now we know some, you know, executives say suck my dick or directors say suck my dick because now we have Me Too. So I think this play to me just showed like, yeah, it's some truth behind it. You know, maybe at that in 1993 we didn't have social media, you know, and this is the way to show the audience that no, this is what's happening in Hollywood. And now we have now we see it, and it's almost crazy because I feel like we like praise it a little bit now, the messiness and the drama. I mean, Housewives have been on forever, or the Jersey Shore people have been on forever. It's like we kind of love our political system. I hate to bring up politics all the time, but like
Oh, we have a reality star, you know.
I mean, this is what it is. So I was reading this and I was just like, with the first line, I was shocked, but then I was like, oh, well, this is 2020 stuff. Like, yeah, all right. You know, this isn't too bad. So I don't know. I just thought the play just showed the truth. And about writers, I mean, we write little skits, and by the time they're posted on Instagram, sometimes I'm like, okay, did I edit this the way we saw it in our heads, the way we talked about, the way we did it, you know what I mean? So even that little bit of work that we do, I'm just like, this turned into a whole nother skit, and this is only a minute. You know what I mean? So I think writers do have power, but everybody wants to be heard. Actors, producers, directors, we're all showing up to like have our creativity out there, and sometimes you have to like Tyler said, you do have to kill your babies, and you have to be willing to like look at the bigger picture of what's happening here. And maybe that's what those housewives are doing. It's about the show. So if I gotta block you, I'm gonna do it. Like the ratings are high, girl.
Tyler, any last thoughts?
I guess some last thoughts are, this play, as I think back and think about this discussion, is a lot of like, screw your feelings. Well, from Victor's standpoint, it's like, screw your feelings, this is art. But in the end, it kind of reads to me as, screw your feelings, we are either making money, or this is the business. It's the difference between what we consider art and what we consider business and or success. And those were just some random final thoughts as I think about everything. Do we sacrifice ourselves and really succumb to everything, or do we stand by the art that we've produced? Do you want to be known as the artist, the art house picture person, or do you want truly the notoriety, the big budget, the money? So I think that's something that I think everybody, maybe not in the terms of this play, at one point in their career, each character has had to question, including Victor. And that's kind of Victor's journey, is do I go with art, or do I go with making money? And it's just some last minute things, which I think is something we all kind of fight with. Is,
I was
like
just
I
gonna
said,
say,
like,
we all do that. We
yeah,
all
we all
have
fight
that
with.
moment. I think that's life. You're gonna have that moment where you're like, do I really want to do this, or do I not? I mean, I had a, not to steal your point, but like, I had a job that was damn near killing me, and I was just like, no, but for the glory of the company, right? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but sorry, but I just did.
No, it's great. It's great.
Amanda?
I will say I do not by any means consider myself a writer. But I would like just to bring up that at one point there was a web series circling that some friends were writing. And I got a copy of an episode, and I remember somebody, I forget which friend, was like, oh, if you have any feedback or thoughts or input about the writing, like, let us know. And I was like, what? No, I'm an actor. I just read the lines. I don't have input, which is the exact opposite of this entire play, as from the character's perspective. But growing up in a theater world, I don't have a say. You learn the lines that are on the page. There's no creative input. That is what you do. Like, that's it. So I think that's a really interesting thing. And then only my other final point, just to bring up another example of someone talking about the industry in a different media forum, but my favorite show, Schitt's Creek, which I love it so much, and the roommates are watching it.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that.
But Moira is like, oh, the script is merely a jumping off point. And she's trying to convince the writer or the director who doesn't care about it and thinks it's trash. And, you know, it's even as her as an actress, she's like, it's merely a jumping off point. And she's like improvising and doing whatever she has to do to make the movie a hit. And it's funny in that sense that it ends up being a hit due to her and like less about the writing or directing or anything, but about the actors just being, but yeah, that's my final thoughts.
Amos, final thoughts?
Well, first of all, Andre, one of the best piece of wisdom I ever got about directing was, I think it was from Judith Weston, who said, the movie in your head will never exist. So that thing where you're like cutting the thing and you wonder if it's even what you set out to do, it never will be. Like it'll have a lot of that DNA, but it's not going to be the thing. That thing only exists in here. But I think my big takeaway from Four Dogs and a Bone is that it contains so much cynicism and sadness and frustration, and it's fun. And may we all take all of our struggles and frustration and cynicism and, reshape them into something that's funny and jaunty and, short, because I'm sure some really long days influenced this pretty quick play. And to me, that's a cool way of upcycling your experiences as a person. And so I find that part aspirational. Like, yeah, it's so much cynicism in there, but it's a comedy.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for all of the work tonight and for the discussion. We really appreciate it. Join us next time as we destroy the fine art world next, since we've now done literature and film. No, I don't know what's next, but we'll look into it.
You could do, what is it called? Art?
I was just thinking that play. Just thinking that play.
I'll hang a white painting behind me.
Perfect.